Hey there, I'm Connor, and this is Game Development with Sunday Brunch Studios. Alright, so first off, I have a new camera, and hopefully it's looking and sounding good. The mic is the same, but the camera's different, so hopefully it looks better. It's a little bit of a wider shot. I also am trying to film this in 60 frames per second, so we'll see how that goes. Just wanted to up the equipment a little bit and finally get away from essentially the camera that I was using before. Hopefully it pays off. Also, if anything looks weird with the recording or with the sound, I guess should be the same again, because I'm using the same mic. But if anything is off, give me a little bit and I'll try to keep tweaking it. There wasn't too much that happened this weekend, aside from the new camera. I tried a little bit with art again, and I have some thoughts, but I'm going to save that for another day this week. I was listening to some of the episodes and realized, there was a couple things that happened. So first off, I had made a comment on the previous episode that I had missed an episode because I didn't really have too much to say. And I had made the comment, the reason I didn't put an episode out yesterday was because XYZ. But if you listen to it on Spotify, you would have noticed that I actually had put out an episode the day before. And what happened was that a draft was saved and never published, and so I ended up missing a day. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, then it was all fine. If you're listening to this on Spotify, then yeah, there was a little hiccup there. And for some reason, Spotify will not make some of my videos work, and I'm still trying to figure that out too. Not sure what's going on there. So the second thing is that I realized I didn't do a weekly recap, or didn't call the episode a weekly recap. One of the reasons for that was because I felt like I had talked about my week in its entirety, and there wasn't really much that happened with game development that felt worthwhile to bring up. And that might happen sometimes, but I hope people understand as well that, if I don't have something, then, we're just going to run with it. I think the 4-day week also messed me up because Monday was a holiday, but in my mind it was a holiday, but not. Anyway, excuses aside, we're back for another week with a new camera, and I'm going to try something different because I did a lot of reading, and I had my finance course on Saturday, and one of the books that we have to read is called Finance for Entrepreneurs. There were some interesting concepts in there that, for me, I want to take the chance to explain it because it helps me process these ideas. I'm hoping that other people will maybe find it interesting, or just find it interesting to hear the way that I think. Part of the reason why I started this podcast was to share my experience, share what I'm going through, pass along some of my learnings, so that hopefully other people can feel like business is approachable for them. There's a lot of content out there around these topics, around business. There's a lot of content around making games, inspiration to keep you going, different analyses on the game market. But I've always felt like I was longing for someone who was talking just about running their game studio and what that's like, and how they go through some of the quote-unquote boring stuff. So in an effort to maybe put out boring video content, podcast content, I'm going to take a crack at it. So we'll see how this goes, and I'm going to get fancy and make a transition over into Krita where I have some drawings. So I will try to make this as best of an experience for people who are listening to the podcast. But if you are watching on video, hopefully this is just a fun little exercise, and I will see if I ever do this again. Full disclosure, this is the second take that I'm doing on this because the first one was a little bit rough. So I'm already breaking my rules about trying to do things in one take, and we're going to give this a second go. All right, so here we are in Krita, and I have two little enemies. One is a angry little box, and that's going to be our boss enemy. And on the right side, we have a happy little box that is our hero character. And we're going to be talking about an RPG battle system where we're going to have a couple of stats. We're going to be worried about attack, we're going to be worried about defense, and we're going to worry about health, or HP. The definitions of this are going to be that our attack is going to determine how much our starting value for damage is when we do an attack. The defense is going to be subtracted from our attack to result in some amount of damage, and that our HP is going to be how much health we have before one or the other character is going to be eliminated. So to write that down, we have attack minus defense is equal to damage, and HP being 0 is bad. Bad. Perfect. Very scientific here. And the first concept, if you're looking down at the layers and trying to get a little preview of what we're talking about, is talking about profit. And what I've called damage here, where we have attack minus defense is damage, that is going to be our profit, is our damage. Because what we are left with, or what is actually gone through after we subtract defenses, is going to be essentially everything that we're going to take home. Our attack is what's going to be called our revenue, and that would be what we are making as from all of our sales, regardless of what happens to it. And the defense is going to be everything else that happens. So in our case, we're going to keep it simple and say that that would be just like a flat number representing our enemy's defense, but that could include things as how much money we've spent to acquire a customer or cost to acquire a customer. It could be the cost to actually develop or build our game, which would be the cost of service or cost of goods and services. It could be things such as taxes or Steam's cut or royalties or whatever it might be that's related to making a game sale. And so I'll write down CAC, which is our cost to acquire the customer, because we're going to focus first on making just one sale, selling one game to one customer. The CAC is always going to be part of that because we have to acquire them in some way. And then we'll call it the cost of service or cost of goods and services, the COGS. I'm running out of room, but that is going to be, some of the other stuff. And maybe the cost of goods and services would include the Steam cut that they take automatically, which is based on revenue, which is really important. It's not based on profit, it's based on revenue. They take it early. And that's actually going to be a percentage. So this calculation here can get more complex, right? In the same way that damage calculation would get complex for an RPG. So that's the first concept. And over time, the other idea that I want to start to bring in is that we have this HP is equal to 0. So let's say that we are trying to fight this enemy, and we eventually want to end up eliminating that enemy. We have to reduce its HP to 0. But every single turn, when we do an attack, they're going to attack us back. And our HP is going to go down to 0. And so what we'd want to think about is that our business, our game studio, we want its health to always be not 0. Because if our business is down at 0, then we're done. We're out of business. And what's interesting that when we talk about money is that our attack or our revenue is money, and our health is in money, so it's the same resource. But I have found it helpful to use this RPG metaphor to think about our business having health points, because we will see in as I go through some of these other examples where that can come into play, where maybe we are making profit on every single sale, but we're actually slowly losing more health as an overall business. Because when we're looking at this as just as sales, this doesn't include things such as how much it costs for us to pay for our licensing fees, or to pay people to actually make the game. Maybe we have employees that we need to pay. Maybe we have contractors that we need to pay, right? There's a lot that goes into it that it is not just all related to this one sale. So there's different ways then that we can start to look at our damage per second, our DPS. And this is very common in RPGs, where we're looking at how much damage that we're doing over a period of time, so that we can get an idea of how we're trending in relation to how fast our health is dropping, right? And this is all going to be related to an income statement for our business, which is essentially this kind of accounting. Now, the next thing that I have is that we have a cash-based accounting. This is going to be the first model that we're going to explore in a way that we can start calculating our DPS or our income statement. And so when we're doing cash-based accounting, essentially what we're saying is if I do one hit, this is going to result in, we'll call it 10 damage. 10 damage. We're not going to worry about the, and I'm spelling it wrong, but please forgive me. We're not going to worry about all the other things that go into this. We're just worried about what is the damage that's going to be coming out. And the enemy, maybe on their first hit, is going to be doing, I don't know, we'll call it 5 damage. Maybe on our second hit, we're going to do 15. And then on their second hit, they're going to do 5. And so we kind of have this constant stream on our enemy side, and our damage is variable. So maybe on the third hit, we do like a critical hit. Right. So we're going to keep going on and so on and so forth. And eventually, one of us is going to hit 0. Now, if we're looking at this example, we have done 10, 15, and 30, and the enemy has done 5, 5, 5. And if we both have 100 HP, then very clearly we can see that we are going to be able to have more than enough health to be able to defeat the enemy before we run out of health ourselves. Because if we were to continue down this line, we can see all that damage is tracking very quickly. And each of these numbers, like round 1, round 2, round 3, we're immediately taking account all the damage and just realizing it in that moment. And this is similar to cash-based accounting, because if we make a sale, then we immediately get that cash, it goes into our bank account, and everything is transacted all at once. So we can kind of see that, our burn rate of how much money or how much health we're losing is lower than how much cash that we're taking in. It's very simple, and this is probably what you would see on your normal bank statement. And at this point, I should probably say, I'm not an accountant. I am not a professional in this in any means. I am just a game dev who's talking about this from an RPG standpoint. Great. Okay. I'm sure I needed to say that. So the second way that in the book that they talked about is the accrual-based accounting. And this is, first off, saying on the first hit, we are now a wizard. And we're going to do a damage over time effect, or a dot, for 100 damage. And our enemy is still going to hit us, maybe this time for 5 damage. Again, keeping it very simple. Now the question is, how often is that damage over time going to proc? We know that over the lifetime of its 100 damage, or over its lifetime, it will do 100 damage, but we don't know how long that it's going to take. And so in games, if we had like a poison dot, that might occur, and maybe we say that on our first hit, we're actually doing 0 damage. And then on the second hit, or the second turn, I should say, it's going to do 5 of its damage. And then on our third, it's going to do another 5 of its damage. And on our enemy side, if it's doing 5 damage, well, isn't this interesting? on our first turn, because we did that dot of 100 damage, and we did 0, we were actually now behind our enemy, and we're going to lose all of our health first before our damage effect even does all of 100 its damage. So in some way, we need to find a way to reduce this damage or dodge it and not take damage, so that way we can start to get ahead. But we've already kind of accounted for the fact that we've done our 1 dot and done 100 damage. And maybe this is a game where if we do another 200 dot damage, that's not really going to matter if it's only going to tick for 5 at a time. The extreme example of this is maybe this is going to be 10 turns, and then it's going to do all of its damage at once. And so now, instead of doing 5, we're going to be doing 0 every single turn until we get to round 10, where we're going to do 100 all at once. And this might be something where we actually have a contract that we are completing or an invoice that we're sending to a customer. And that would be the point at which the money would hit our bank account. And even though we've counted that 100 damage, and I've dropped my pen on the ground, which if you heard that, that's what that was. When we've done our 100 damage, we count that at the very start on round 1, and we are knowing that over that time we will do 100 damage, but we still have to wait all the way till round 10 before we even see the health bar move. But anything we do won't really matter at that point because it's just kind of stacking on to the effect. So we're still in a position where we need to make sure that we can survive until the round ends. Now, maybe we're lucky and this is going to be maybe 4 turns. Well, now that's a very different story, because if we do this on round 4, we're back to that situation where we are more than clear to be able to finish everything. There's not really a difference, at least in terms of advantage of doing it one way or of DPS over the other, right? Because the end outcome is we're trying to get an idea of how healthy our business is. Do we have enough damage and health to survive all of the damage that's coming our way? Can we keep our HP above 0? And so that's where this income statement and where these different ways of accounting can help based on the type of business that you're doing or based on how money is flowing through. And so we're going to focus, or this talk is really just on my understanding of what this income statement is and how it can be leveraged to get an idea of how healthy your company is. And again, this is just a fun way for me to think about it. Hopefully other people find that interesting too. And when I'm thinking about selling games, originally I was thinking that I'm selling games to customers on Steam or on itch. And in theory, the money should just come directly to me, right? Because I've sold the game, someone buys it, the customer pays for it immediately. Great, that should be my money now. But that's not how it works. And Twitch works like this. I'm fairly certain that itch does this as well. So Twitch and itch, Steam should be doing this as well. I think Steam has this, where they'll say something to the effect of, the money will go to your account, and Steam will collect that money. It will do all the tax processing. It'll do, like for taxes, for VAT tax, sales tax, VAT tax. They will take their cut from the revenue, their 30%, and they'll handle all that payment processing. They'll collect the money and they hold on to it. They will also report all of that to the local governments and bodies that they need to report that information to, so that they can, take account of all of that and be square. Then they, Steam, will give you that money on some regular basis or after you accrue it. Twitch, again, does the same thing. If you have a bunch of subscribers, it's not just immediately that it will hit your bank account. It will be after 30 days and based on how much money. So if you have under their minimum threshold, they won't pay you out. That's just kind of how these different payment processors work. And so that's where it actually moves from, we can't think of game development and selling on these platforms as that cash or that flat damage example where we have our sword and we're just swinging it and doing damage and counting it. It's going to have a delay to it. And we're going to have to keep that in mind, because if our HP is going to be ticking all this time and we're reliant on our business surviving with that money that's going to come through for game sales, we need to be prepared for the reality that it's not going to be there immediately. Maybe if you're really unlucky, your game won't sell well enough for you to even hit that minimum threshold. A long time ago when I was streaming on Twitch, that's what happened with me. Fortunately, I wasn't trying to make any money with it, but every time that I had a Prime subscription come through, there was no money that came into the account, and Twitch never sent that money until I hit that point. So it was just kind of interesting to see that, that's kind of the reality of what it is. And again, it's very different if, let's say, you're doing contract work or you're contracting someone else and you send them an invoice, or you are sending an invoice to maybe someone you've worked for, or you have to pay someone else out. That difference in time between when you actually get that money can start to make a big difference. And there's different concepts that you can start to apply based on how that all works, and the bigger the delay related to that money, because people want their money sooner. That's one of the reasons why being able to get that money faster can lead to, for example, paying up front for a yearly subscription for something and you get a little bit of a discount versus paying monthly, right? That's how all these different things work, and we can think about it in the same way for our business. So again, that is what I'm learning, how I'm kind of representing it in my mind in terms of DPS and RPGs and all these things, and trying to understand how these concepts work. By no means am I making any recommendations about how you should be doing your accounting. These are just the ideas that were represented in the Introduction to Finance for Entrepreneurs. And yeah, just the way I'm thinking about it. So hopefully it was an interesting topic. Hopefully the recording came out well, and that the little break to do the Krita drawings was fun and a little bit different. So thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.